button, and I'm going to hand over to Sue. Kia ora, Sue.
Oh, hello. Thanks for such a great welcome, Val, and great introduction to what we're doing here today. And I want to just welcome everyone to 2026. Like we haven't really all been together that much yet, given the holidays. And it's so good to be together for a little while and to enjoy each other's company on this zero waste journey that we're on. I have to admit that, like Val was saying, by the end of 2025, I was feeling a little bit disheartened. We had the big funding cuts at MFE, the rollbacks on waste reduction and climate policy, the attacks on Te Tiriti, the reallocation of waste disposal levy funds, and then the very slow progress that we've all seen the last 6 years on waste and lettuce legislation. And there was the usual burst of bad news right at the last minute, just as we all went on holiday. The MFE is going to be rolled into a mega ministry with a focus on consenting and development. And to me, that saves a lot of time and energy going into reorganizing things, and which is a big backward step for us and our work in protecting and regenerating our environment. So I just take heart and thank goodness that we have this amazing action at the local scale. Communities, iwi, hapu, and Māori enterprise, and in some place communities, Māori and councils all working together. They continue to focus on some amazing work. They're putting our people and our planet first, and we're really all working hard to leave things better than they were when we found them. So I wanted to just, talk a little bit about how we all got together on this crazy road to zero waste. As we know from Tau Māori and from Marvel, there's nothing like a good origin story. And the idea of zero waste as a destination and as a roadmap and as a toolkit, it has really deep roots in communities across the Motu. Um, in the beginning, there were these two guys who asked themselves the tough questions and then they just started doing stuff. And the news about what they were doing came on the wind to communities all across Aotearoa. And then they challenged themselves to step up and make stuff happen too. And one thing that I get told a lot in my work is that I can't change the world, or you can't change the world. And, what I do really know in my heart is that I can change my world. And that's every bit of it that I can touch. So when we ask the hard questions and open our hearts and minds to see what isn't working, and then you can understand that you're part of the problem, and that also means that you can be part of the solution too. You just have to commit to work together to make something different and better happen. Oh, sorry, I've got some strange graphics appearing, which I wasn't expecting, but we'll just welcome them as a grace, with the grace that we have for this year. Um, Zero Waste Aotearoa, Localize, and our members are all about working together to build practical solutions that work for our communities and our places. And Zero Waste Aotearoa is all about finding ways to share knowledge and experience so that communities can learn from each other and they don't have to start from scratch. So way back in the day, these guys got us all started. In 1987, it felt a lot like it does now. It was a tough economy, not many jobs, big changes driven by government. There was despair, a big exodus of young people out of the rural communities. And Warren and Cliff saw the unemployment and social problems that were created by the economic reforms in the 1980s. And they chose to set up the Community Business and Environment Centre, which in those days was pretty radical. The idea of connecting those three ideas was just pie in the sky madness. Their biggest idea was that communities and organizations could solve their own problems. So it's kind of like a hang on a minute, mate moment. Don't we really need to give our hard earned money to the global waste companies to do it all for us? They went to Scotland and they found an old model that worked from centuries ago for exactly the same sort of business that they wanted to set up in New Zealand in 1987, a co op. They got started using what they had, they put themselves at the tip face, and they started to divert everything they could. And with really simple tools and equipment, they showed it was real easy to divert 65 or 70%. It's been proven time and time again at Extreme and other sites around the country that it's possible. And they didn't just do that in their place, in their community. They really started to spread the word. And you can see Warren there. We all carry him with us in this work. He'll be very proud to see us still here 25 years later, 40 years, more than 40 years later, still working as hard as he did on trying to progress things for our country. And by 2020, or by 2000, Warren Snow was a zero waste champion. He was supported by Julie Dickinson and Jerry Gillespie, and a bunch of zero waste champions from around the world came to Kaitaia and met up so that they could share their experience and learn from one another. New Zealand was leading the way back then, the turn of the century. By 2002, we had this amazing waste strategy, which was developed by people, business, councils, and the government all working together. And South Australia took it, they adapted a little bit, and now they're doing 80% diversion. Our strategy got put on the shelf because our governments had dropped the ball, and we've been limping along ever since. We all know that recycling is not the answer, but it is a great vehicle for engaging with people around what they're buying and using and throwing away. It can be a tough gig running a reuse and recycling centre. People show up every day expecting you to have all the answers. And so many interesting conversations get sparked off about products and packaging and materials and how people ended up with them and what's going to happen next. Council contracts to run curbside recycling systems were a new thing in the 2000s. The big four reuse and recycling centres, CBEC and Kaitaia, Innovative Waste Kaikoura, Mid-Canterbury Wastebusters in Ashburton, and Extreme Zero Waste in Aotearoa, they won contracts from their councils which helped them to gear up and provide useful services for their communities. And CBEC reached out and did joint ventures with Waiheke Resource Trust and Wastebusters and Wanaka to help them win contracts too. In 2003, at the Life with Waste hui in Whangaroa, Raglan, the decision was made to create an umbrella organisation so that the people that were running and working on the reuse and recycling centres that was springing up across the motu could coordinate and find company in their work. And in 2006, this became the Community Recycling Network. And you can see that it was all a little bit looser back in those days with our logo creation and our comms work. Parakore got started in 2010, and Parakore, as you know, is a kaupapa Māori charitable trust with a vision of oranga taio or oranga marae and oranga whānau. So if we have a healthy environment, healthy places, then we're going to have healthy people, and these things are fundamentally connected. So Parakore supports resilience within Māori communities through Mātauranga Māori behaviour change programs and services. And they educate and advocate from a Māori worldview for zero carbon, zero waste whānau, hapu, iwi, and hapori Māori. So if you're interested, you can subscribe to their newsletter, which I see has 4,000 plus people on their list. So go on the website, sign up. There must be something good going on over there. So I just want to mihi te Lorraine Renata for her work on this, and I've borrowed, some of her slides from our summit earlier end of last year. There's a great video on the Zero Waste Aotearoa YouTube channel if you'd like to find out more about this. But when we engage with Te Ao Māori, we see things through new eyes. And what she said to us is that when we end up with waste, when we lose sight of the big picture, when we don't understand and make sense of the relationships upstream and downstream with materials, products, and packaging, we really have to put some work in to understand where it's come from, where it's going to go, what job do we want it to do for us. And engaging with Te Ao Māori really challenges us to ask some deeper questions and sometimes to remember things that we've forgotten. What if we change the way we produce and consume to reduce extraction and material flows and energy use? What if we measured success in terms of Māori restored rather than diversion rates? What if we focused on leaving things better than they were before by making sure that everything we do supports ecosystems and replenishes resources? And what if we recognised who bears the cost of waste and pollution, where this happens, and then took our responsibilities really seriously for the people and ecosystems in other places and in the future? As Lorraine says, what if the real work is restoring balance in systems and communities and ourselves? And this is what I see at the heart of zero waste. In our Pākehā world, we love a good theory. We have zero waste, circular economy, industrial ecology, triple and quadruple bottom line and all that. But it does get pretty wordy and complicated. It makes much more sense to me when I go back to the basics. There's really just three things we need to hold in mind. Design waste and pollution out of products, packaging, and business models. Keep products, packaging, and materials in circulation for as long as possible so that we can just make the best possible use out of all that energy and resources that we use to create them. And then we really want to leave things better than they were before. So we want to regenerate natural systems and communities and local economies. As Jeanette Fitzsimons used to say, growth isn't a bad thing. It just all depends on what you're growing. Healthy ecosystems, strong communities, vibrant local economies, and stable partnerships under the Te Tiriti umbrella are all 100% worth growing. At the places that our members run all across the Motu, it's really all about keeping the spirit alive in the world. It's about holding a space for an alternative reality where we don't waste people and we don't waste stuff. And it's about organizing our lives and our businesses in ways that leave our people and our places better off. Sometimes it feels to me like a form of magical realism. It's a way to show people what zero waste world could look like and feel like, and just how easy and rewarding it can be. So all over Aotearoa, there are magical places like this where the future already exists. People are working in organisations across the Motu to prevent and reduce waste, to share knowledge and things, to repair, reuse, compost and recycle, and to make some noise in support of what's going right and to challenge what's going wrong. Thousands of people and businesses interact with us every day, and every touch point is a chance to change hearts and minds and to learn something new. That's about 10,000 boots on the ground with staff and volunteers championing the zero waste cause. It's $90 million being used to provide useful services for communities, to generate meaningful work and boost local economies. And it's 44,000 tonnes of resources going back around to be recycled and composted. So if that gets you excited, how do you get started in all this? You have to dream big and start small, is my experience of it all. You got to use what you've got. Just before Christmas, I was up in Tairāwhiti with the Paratoa team, where up in Wharekahika, they do a weekly rubbish and recycling collection because it's hard for locals to get to the district's transfer station. And this is their cool as little shed that they set up for themselves, and they're crushing glass there and experimenting with products that they make and sell locally. And they're really good salespeople. I went away with a little bag full of things that I maybe didn't need, but I ended up really wanting once I'd had a look through what they were doing. And the other place I went just before Christmas was Hamden. And Hamden Community Energy started off by taking over their local transfer station and building a reuse shed, which they thought at the time was way out of what they could manage. And now they're on their third shed. When I was there just before Christmas, there was a determined bunch of builders, all over 70, making steady progress to create this amazing makerspace right next to the school. It reminded me of how so many of us have started out, just doing the best with the people and the spaces and resources we've got, and then expanding out into the next stage. In the early days, the leaders of bigger organizations would all get together to help the smaller or the new ones get up and running. It was a tough ask because there's a lot of work had to get done in the night or on the weekend. And so we set up Localized to support these kinds of startups. And as you can see, there are a bunch of uplifting zero waste champions or zero waste change agents. Localized is the commercial arm of Zero Waste Aotearoa. To do this, they form joint ventures and they run some organizations themselves. They return a dividend to Zero Waste Aotearoa to help us cover the overheads. They will only go into a community if they're invited by local individuals or organizations. And they'll start work if they believe the project's going to have a positive impact and their values are aligned. And because they're a commercial arm, of course, they like to get a financial return coming back to Localized that can help feed the work that's going to happen in the future on zero waste in other ways. Aotearoa Zero Waste on Kapiti Coast is one of these joint ventures. So Kapiti District Council, Sustainability Trust and Localized work together to get Aotearoa Zero Waste up and running. And it works with the community to revalue, reuse and repurpose construction and demolition waste. Lots of members have visited to get ideas and share ideas. And this crew that you can see here went along as part of our 2024 Zero Waste Summit field trip. Auckland Council have been proactive about building a citywide resource recovery network. For the last 15 years, they've committed to a zero waste future for the Aucklanders. Through their waste minimisation and management plans, they've got clear targets and they sit that alongside the capital budgets that they embed in their long-term plans. They've been doing that since 2012. Officials and councillors came out to the regions to see how places like Extreme Zero Waste and CBEC and Wanaka Wastebusters work back in 2015, and they took the best ideas from us back to the big city. They've gradually been developing a network of community resource recovery centres across the city as a way to get the right infrastructure in place to set them up for their city up for a zero waste future. There's 14 up and running, and they're working towards a goal of 21. They're committed to using a partnership model, and that involves working with local community organisations to develop facilities and services. The development of this Waitakere Resource Recovery Park is in partnership with McLaren Park Henderson South Community Trust. And the two organisations share a common goal to build the zero waste movement in communities and neighbourhoods. Partnerships between Auckland Council localised and local organisations like Synergy are happening, and they work with funders like MFE and Foundation North to get the investment capital and the working capital they need to make it all happen. This Māori Pacifica-led organisation is a great example of how Auckland is leading the way by partnering with Māori and Pacific organisations. There's a lot of learning involved in all sides to grow these kinds of partnerships. And it's useful for carrying into other parts of the council's work and also for all of the partners in their growth and development. Acorn got set up in 2021 to support all the operators that were running these community resource recovery centres across the city and to help develop the Auckland Resource Recovery Network for the future. Ian and Rick, who you can see here, looking pretty proud, I must say, led this work with Auckland Council to develop an organisation called the Zero Waste Tamaki Makaurau Trust, which now umbrellas the Auckland Community Resource Recovery Centre network, and it's going to pick up and carry on from here. As you'll be starting to pick up, everything is connected. Outside of Auckland, organisations like Wastebusters started small. A bunch of volunteers used scavenged materials to build the first reuse and recycling shed. And Wastebusters went on to become a model that Auckland City looked to as an example of what's possible. And now things have come full circle, with Wastebusters using the example of how community-led zero waste infrastructure is being developed in Auckland to support their plans to expand and develop Wastebusters 2.0. So if we go out to what the team at Zero Waste Aotearoa get up to, our name has changed from Zero Waste Network to Zero Waste Aotearoa, but we still have a major focus on supporting the member network. And we've also stepped up to work harder in building the zero waste movement in New Zealand. And we're lean in, as well as Val said, to support the global organisations that are working in the space like Gaia and Zero Waste Europe. As you know, working together is not easy. We have to take it in stages. And so we work upwards, like we're working upwards from sharing, starting to have conversations and discussions, moving into collaborations. And then once you get a whole bunch of people and organizations working together towards a common goal, you have a movement. So what does that movement look like on the ground? There's a big program of capacity building in the network, connecting across communities to collectively prevent waste, repair, reuse, recycle, and compost. And we do that by growing and upskilling the network, developing collaborative and inclusive partnerships, and by creating spaces to share knowledge, tools, and resources. And one of the ways this happens is that Sarah, our membership coordinator, runs the networking calls so that people can connect up with others doing similar jobs, face the same challenges, and so everyone can meet and find company in their work and share ideas. Every year, our team runs a hui with speakers and workshops and local site visits, which is a wonderful opportunity to learn and network as well. This year, it's going to be in Christchurch. So if you're keen to go, it's in September. So check out the website for details. There's something on our training and networking list for everyone. So join up to Circle or subscribe to the two newsletters, the Zero Waste Aotearoa one or the Getting to Zero one, which has an Auckland focus, so that you can find out what's happening and get all the latest updates. The training is a lot more formal. It's to help you get to grips with the theory and practice of zero waste. But there's some units on human resources, introduction to Tiriti, and the team are also working on a new series on introductory comms work. So that'll be launching soon. We do a lot of advocacy. It's all about sharing and making ourselves known, getting our version of the world out there so that people know there's an alternative and they can understand what it looks and feels like. There's a lot of conversations and often they're tough ones. And then we also try to find ways to work together to progress things we do agree on, at the same time as we hang tough on the things we don't. Offering practical solutions to the root causes of waste is something that's really a big idea. We're championing best practice with Indigenous solutions and innovative ideas. We're engaging with government, business, civil society, and households. And we're challenging false solutions to waste and climate change. That's a lot going on. We're trying to change a system that is way bigger than us. And the organizations and the people that are making the most out of the way our economy works now really don't want things to change. They do everything they can to delay, derail, and distract everyone. We're growing our advocacy capability, and we feel very grateful that there's philanthropists who are a lot like a fairy godmother that value this work and support us with it. We do submissions and presentations and talk to select committees, we go on working groups and steering groups, write letters to share our thoughts and our evidence and our opinions, and we have a lot of coffee with everyone that we can in order to spread the word. We're running a couple of campaigns, and that enables us to put sustained and focused effort onto two things that we think are critical at the moment. We've got a red line on incineration, and that's because it takes us in the wrong direction. It's just another form of disposal. We really need to invest in infrastructure and systems to prevent and reduce waste by setting up reuse, repair, composting, and recycling systems. Incineration creates greenhouse gas emissions. When you burn plastic, you release all the CO2 from the oil that got used to create it. And it creates toxins. The byproducts end up in our air, land, and water, and they damage our health and our ecosystems. So we make submissions, we appear at hearings, and we work with experts to provide evidence. And Val does a great job of activating and coordinating and supporting communities like this one here in Waipa, where they're facing live incinerator proposals. The other thing we're working on is getting a container deposit return scheme in place in New Zealand. That's something that Warren started many, many years ago, and we're still carrying on with the intent to do it. The reason that we do that is it's just a better way to recycle drink containers. It would halve litter, it would double recycling rates, and it would give us the infrastructure like the reverse logistics system that we really need to be able to get good reuse systems up and running. It's a stepping stone into product stewardship schemes for Aotearoa. And an effective container return scheme would work like a master key for waste in Aotearoa. It would unlock a cascade of real solutions to problems ranging from caps and lids to textiles and e-waste. And the third reason that we're really backing it is that we'll create a lot of business and fundraising opportunities for members and hubs as well as whānau and hapu in their local areas. So Zero Waste Aotearoa is always also involved in a couple of collaborative projects. Every Bite is one of these. It's a fun, easy program that helps households reduce food waste and save money. And people that do it generally find it really successful. The feedback is that it can be transformative, it's a game changer. And as you can see here, more than 90% of people actually were able to use it to reduce their food waste. The basic idea is that once you really understand where your food comes from and then what's going to happen to it if you don't eat it, then you become really motivated to use a couple of easy tips and tricks to be able to waste less. It's a national program, it's designed and delivered locally, and it's an opportunity for local organizations to work with other behavior change experts across the country so they can really learn what works and doesn't work in that behavior change space. They're using a lot of interesting qualitative and quantitative analysis to really dig into what's happening and to find the strategies that work. And if you're interested, you can have a look on the Everybite website. First of all, you see when this year's programs are running, and you'll be able to dive into the detail in the annual reports if you're interested in the geek level data. We also have Whakahomanu Hineahone, which is a Te Tiriti dynamic project with 4 partners. So there's Parakore, Te Waka Kaiora, Aotearoa Composters Network, and Zero Waste Aotearoa working together. And the idea is to empower whānau, hapu, iwi, and hapore Māori through composting to enhance the Māori of Hineahone. So it's all about restoring the health of our soils and learning the skills and getting in place the systems and structures that we need to be able to do that well. Stage one is setting up the business case and the training and the mentoring and the partnerships. Stage two will be running the pilots, and stage three will be establishing 100 composting hubs across Aotearoa. And so Ministry for the Environment and some more fairy godmothers at Clare are helping to support that work. So one other thing that we do is we work a lot alongside other organisations that are heading in the same direction. So the Repair Cafe Network is an example of that. Reuse Aotearoa is another. The Aotearoa Plastic Pollution Alliance, Climate Action Network here in New Zealand. And then, as we said, there's the global organisations who are also working towards shared goals. Gaia, Zero Waste Europe, Reloop. And I think that the main thing that I would want you to take away from what I've been talking with you about today is really that it's all about the partnerships. It's all about shared goals and common interests. It's about lining up, having the hard discussions, getting things set up so that you can progress things in the long term. Sometimes that takes a bit longer in the early days. You have to go through some difficult conversations in order to come up with ways to work through some of the things that are happening. But it's really worth it if it can give you a long-term story about how you're going to get somewhere in the long run. So that's it from me. Really enjoying having you all here today, just thinking about and celebrating all this work that's been happening in New Zealand over the last many, many years, and all of the hard work that people do every day to be able to keep building this waste-free future together. Hopefully that gives you an idea of the range of things that we're collectively up to. Working together on local projects, I find, is the best thing that we can do in these tough times. We can take heart that even though government might be moving at snail's pace, there's hundreds of amazing examples of local action around our country and across the world. And I think that this festival, this celebration of Zero Waste with Zero Waste Month is a really good time to enjoy that. You can all feel really proud of the work that you do every day, and we can enjoy the good company that surrounds us in our zero waste world.
Kia ora, Sue. Thank you very much. I just want to open the floor for a few minutes. I'll get you to quit your screen sharing there. To ask
Yeah, I'm just gonna.
if there's some questions or comments, or anything that people would like to share with attendees here.
Have I stopped sharing or no?
No, no.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I've got my button. The recording button is hiding it. Sorry.
Go.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Too
So
many buttons.
if there's anybody who would like to ask a question,
I could.
go on, Hannah.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Sue. That was very uplifting and necessary in these times. So thank you for being so peaceful. I was thinking you could definitely do a side hustle of like meditative zero waste podcast for people to go asleep to and also rest. So my question is kind of like at that local level.
Mm,
um, that partnership and relationship with councils is still can be a real strong enabler for community groups who have a vision or a plan, but need some help to get going, whether that's financial or practical or whatever.
mm,
Um, have you got some, because sometimes it can be quite challenging in the face of, big contracts with big companies and so on to kind of get cut through. Have you got some examples of like how in the past communities have managed to build like some practical sort of examples of how communities can get to that sort of partnership level with council to really unlock um, yeah, but to be able to be kind of driving the zero waste vision in a town or city, like obviously we have examples of places like Wastebusters and um, zero waste in Raglan. Sorry, my brain's not extreme. Sorry.
extreme zero waste.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I guess could you give some examples of how that relationship is formed?
Well, I think what I'd say is that There are great examples of partnerships and people working together, and they're generally the result of a lot of hard work. Like when you look at what Extreme's done in Whangaroa over more than 25 years now, it's been a constant series of ups and downs. And sometimes it's about using all the tools in your toolbox. Sometimes it's about going with a really nice, well drawn out plan and explaining calmly and quietly what's going to happen. And the next time it might be about, I remember Rick telling me about one time they had a big problem and they basically just shut down the council switchboard by getting everybody in town to call them up and say what they thought should happen. So sometimes you have to be calm and relaxed, and other times you have to be a bit of a pain in the butt. And I'd say that it's not always easy to tell which time is which, but a lot of it is just committing, like I was saying at the beginning, you have a really good look around you and you see who else in your community is willing to work with you. Then you commit to actually being there for the long haul. And I think that, I say, you think of Wastebusters as a good example. At the opening of Wastebusters, the mayor at the time bet $100 that Wastebusters would be gone within 12 months as part of his speech. So that wasn't really an auspicious start for an organization, which has actually turned out to be pretty amazing. And I think that a lot of times you really have to just listen to some of that stuff, carry on regardless, and just really let it wash over you and know that you're on the path. Uh, One thing I realized lately, with all the changes and the rollbacks in environmental policy and climate policy that we've been seeing, is that these big changes in society don't really happen over 10 years or 15 years. They happen over 100 years or more. And I found it quite reassuring to, going back to your sort of bedtime listening, Hannah, to listen to Hilary Mantel's books on the Reformation and to realize that the Reformation actually, you think, oh, yeah, they just reformed, the church and it happened overnight. And, by Christmas, everyone was Protestant or Catholic and off they went. But it didn't happen like that. It happened over hundreds of years. And so I really think we have to learn, we can learn a lot from our treaty partners because they're very patiently and steadily worked over, almost 200 years to just keep on bringing to the table concerns, using good opportunities to take a step forward. When it comes to time to hang tough, they hang tough, and when there's an opportunity and a good partnership and a way to go forward, then they take that opportunity as well. And so I really think that. For us in the environmental space or community building or local economy spaces, it's so important to really just no matter what happens, you just keep on going. And whenever you can, you reach out beside you to gather up your community members to come with you and to be part of the journey. And I'd say the organizations that have survived and done the best around the country, in the 25 years that I've been involved in it, they've been the ones that have taken their community with them. So, that feeling of getting people on board, and making sure that the people that are coming to your sites really understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, how is it helping them, how is it helping you get ahead as an organization, as a community. And I think telling those stories, taking the time, when there's so much day-to-day work going on for all of us, it's really hard to take the time to have the conversations. But I would say that what happens, every single day, all of us talk with so many people, and we have these opportunities to chat to people, to shift them along, to say one thing that might change their mind a little bit, to move them forward, and that's really what it's all about. So yeah, I can just hear someone hasn't got their mic muted. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, I'd say that. And so a lot of it is courage. You really have some days where you're like, oh my God, I just cannot believe this is going to work out. And you just keep on going, get up, go to work the next day. And I think that Karen Drivers just suggested a good point that, if you can bring the businesses around town on board, you can get the organizations around town on board and really have it so that it's a united front and everyone sees the value, then you're going to get a lot further than if you try to go it alone. There's this strange myth, especially in the social enterprise or community enterprise world, where people think they have to be a solopreneur or the one champion, the great leader that carries it all on their shoulders and takes it forward. But it's not really like that. If you look at the organizations that have succeeded and done well in New Zealand, they've had a whole series of different people who have stepped in and taken on the job of leading it forward in different stages, and making space for each other, making space for new people to come in is really important as well. And I think that courage of those little groups, like I talked to you about it, right, at the beginning, the guys up in Wharekahika with their little shed and their truck and their car and their trailer. That's just so much what it was like at some of the big organizations now when they first got started. And the same with the guys in Hamden, they're just relentlessly building community facilities. Every time I go there, they've got another shed in their work plan, and these elderly chaps are just beavering away. Yeah, leaving a legacy of resources for their community in the future.
Kia ora, Sue. Thank you very much. Is there one more short question?
I would just have a very short question for Sue. Thanks a lot, Sue, for this really great overview. My question is, there is already a container return scheme in a new world in New Zealand as a pilot, and it seems to work very, very well. Working. Could there not be more pilots set up as tests, just as a proof for the government it works actually really well?
I think it's really tricky, Jazz, to think about that, because if you I'm just getting distracted by things coming up. Yeah, I think that it's really tricky, because really we're past that stage now in New Zealand. Like that pilot is really good at showing that it could work in retail, but it's more effective for the supermarkets than for the people of New Zealand or for the government. So it's showing the supermarkets that having that reverse vending machine in their foyer is great for their customers. They love it. It's not hard to look after. It's a really practical and useful thing. So it's really better for us to hang tough at the moment, not let the pressure off, or give, some kind of, not take the pressure off really from the government for having to implement that nationwide, because really it needs to be something that goes in across the whole country all at once for it to be effective. Mm.
Kia ora, Sue. There's a question in the chat about organic collection and
Yeah.
use. I'm not sure whether you're able to answer that off the top of your head.
I just did it.
Please tell me, what percentage of the organic waste collected at New Zealand's landfills do you recycle into useful products for human consumption?
It's very low. We don't have a very good record on organics. We had the previous government work to make. They did a lot of work and consultation to introduce compulsory separation. That businesses and households would be required to separate their organics from other materials, so that there'll be a separate collection. And then they also were going to mandate collections by local authorities across the country, so that all the councils would have to collect separately, which would have really been a great way of getting a large amount of material going away, diverted from landfill. But this government that we have now has chosen to backtrack on all of that and to turn off all those policy changes. So really, that's why we're working hard at the community level with the community projects, to be able to just do what we can at the local scale, and to really encourage people to prevent food waste at source, and then also so that we don't generate a lot of that waste in the first place, and then to get where we are creating unavoidable food waste or organic waste, that we're really doing, those local solutions are available for people to tap into. And then like someone's just put in the chat that food rescue is a really great, it's something that's really grown in New Zealand the last 10 years. I remember one of my early jobs at Wastebusters was writing a letter of support for someone who had been arrested by the police for character reference for someone who had been arrested for dumpster diving. And I think now it's amazing that we really have got these great organizations all over the country that are rescuing food and gathering up food and distributing it in ways where it's just not being wasted.
Yeah, kia ora, Sue. Thanks. Long way to go. Again, I just want to say thanks very much to all of you for being here today. I'm really struck that we live in a country that is full of people who love zero waste ideas. If there's one thing that characterizes, I'm a kind of an anti-nationalist, but if there's something that characterizes Aotearoa New Zealand, it is very much the ideas of using the stuff and materials that are here, that are in front of us. And I've really never come across anybody who doesn't love the idea of a container return scheme. And it's a really interesting thing that we have so many people that are so in favor of these ideas, and yet we still have a lot of powerful forces allied against us. And it's worth remembering that it's not just this government, but 20 years of governments that have not progressed a container return scheme. So we certainly ask people, if you're not our member of the Zero Waste Network, join the Zero Waste Network to take action when we ask you to take action on issues, to write letters, to lobby your MP, to talk to your MP, and get involved in zero waste activities in your own community, because they're all over the country. Some of them are members of the network, some of them are not, and whatever, that doesn't stop them from being awesome projects. But together as a united voice, we certainly have more power, and we have more power both to support and enable the kinds of activities we want to have happen, but also to advocate for the kinds of solutions that we really need to have happen, that only government can really deliver on. Things like mandatory regulated product stewardship, which would turn off the tap for so much of the garbage that we've got coming into the country. So yeah, really
Yeah.
appreciate everybody here today, and to thanks so much to Sue for your time and for uplifting us. Yeah, really appreciate that so much. So I encourage everybody to go forward with your mission, with love in your heart, and a desire for deep and profound change, and to remember that awesome um, message that Sue had about tangata whenua, that they are really in many ways a great partner for us, because they're there through the thick and thin. They're there through the good and bad governments. They're there all the time, and we're here on the front lines of waste in our communities every day. So in some ways, the zero waste movement is a wonderful way to kind of bridge the gap across a lot of polarized positions, because we all have waste, and yeah, we kind of we can all find solutions together for that. So yeah, on that note, I'd just like to close us with a karakia, and to say thank you all again for joining us. And I look forward, Sue and I and all the Zero Waste team look forward to seeing you all throughout this coming year, and all the action and activity we will have. So um, kei te mihi ki a koutou, he karakia whakamutunga, kia horo te marino, kia whakapapa pounamu te moana, he huarahi mā tātou i te rangi nei, aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou i a tātou katoa. Kia ora. Kei te mihi.
Thanks so much for taking the time, everyone. We'll see you soon.